Hey Toy Family, welcome to another edition of the Marsham Toy Hour where we discuss anything and everything designer toys. I'm Gary Ham.
And I'm Teresa Hawkins.
And we have a guest joining us today. And Teresa, you actually kind of hand selected this one, didn't you?
I did. It's someone that I think is a super fantastic person and makes super cute things. So, yeah, this should be fun.
Super cute! And, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And so let's just give her a proper intro. So today's guest, she's a self-taught sculptor. And she's actually got a really great story, like a great rags to riches story. And by that I mean for many years she worked the corporate job, the full-time job that she didn't particularly enjoy, but it was like the responsible thing to do. It's what she went to school for. But she's extremely highly creative, so doing that job just wasn't working out for her. So in her free time, she would practice sculpting in clay, these cute little whimsical characters out of polymer clay, and she would post them to her Instagram account. Well, through a little luck and just the right people stumbling across her account or discovering her hashtags at just the right time, she sort of blew up. And through reshare, she was discovered, and then she was highlighted on the very popular website BuzzFeed. And it seemed like almost overnight, she received over 150 commission requests for filling her inbox. And so the very next day, she quit that drab day job and has been working full-time for herself ever since. So let's welcome Simon Says Macy, aka Macy McKinney, to the show. Welcome, Macy.
Hi, thanks for having me. That was a great intro.
Did you really quit the day after you received all those emails?
It was very, very close. It was probably like the end of that same week. It wasn't literally the day after. I had to consult my finance guy, who was my father, to see if it was actually like a sound thing for me to do. And he said, yeah, you could actually make a living doing this. So yeah, it was a few days later that I quit my job, and it happened very, very quickly. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, your previous job for several years was graphic design, right?
Yeah.
And then I don't think many other people in your position would have jumped so quickly at the opportunity. I know a lot of people would be extremely apprehensive and stricken with fear at the thought of leaving the comfortable day job, but you did it, and I really got to commend you for really pursuing your dreams.
Yeah, well, I never really actually wanted to be a graphic designer. I'd always really liked working with my hands and doing different kinds of fine art. But my parents, being the logical people that they were, said, hey, why not graphic design while you sort of find your footing so you can put, meals on your table and you can pay your rent. And then once you find what you're supposed to really be doing, then quit and do that. So I've never been a computer person. Graphic design was never my passion. And so once I realized that I could actually make a living making art that I was passionate about and I could use my hands, it was a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, and I like that you talked to your dad first before making the move. Parents always appreciate that sort of thing. But what you should probably mention, what I mentioned in the intro, is actually that you sort of blew up just from social media, but I didn't cover what it was that kind of maybe really sparked it. You want to tell our listeners kind of how all that started?
Sure. Okay. So what happened was I just started sculpting. I picked up clay. I just felt the need to use my hands and picked up some polymer clay and made a couple things, and I share them on social media just because I've been someone who's posted on social media. I wasn't trying to like gain traction or anything like that, but put some hashtags on it. And one of the things that I made was Louise from Bob's Burgers, and I made her into a snail. And Bento Box Entertainment, who makes Bob's Burgers, found it and reposted that on all their social media. And so it was really them that kind of, blew me up in the beginning. And then BuzzFeed found that and wanted to do an interview. And I did that. And it was overnight success. It was strange. I was actually sculpting one night, and my phone just kept buzzing and buzzing and buzzing and buzzing and buzzing. I was like, what is going on? What is this? This is crazy. And my Instagram was just going off, and my email was just going off. And yeah, it was overnight. I mean, just as soon as that BuzzFeed article came out, like I couldn't even keep up with the emails.
That's awesome. And what were most of the commissions like? Were they mostly asking for Bob's Burger stuff, or were they, many of them asking for like original requests?
Yeah, it was original request. I mean, I don't think that I sold a set of Bob's Burger snails for months after that.
Wow.
I mean, it was people who, someone wanted their pet or an inside joke they had. I mean, the BuzzFeed article that they did on me, I'd sculpted a couple other things besides the Louise snail. And so people saw my little monsters or my little animals or whatever, and they asked like, oh, have you ever made an iguana, or have you ever made a pug? So everyone had different requests. And so I thought, well, okay, I've only been sculpting for a month and a half, but I think I could probably make that. So I was literally teaching myself to sculpt while I was, making commissions for people. So it was a little stressful because I really wasn't a sculptor yet, but I pulled it off, I guess.
Well, you had them fooled, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. It's worked out so far.
Awesome.
Teresa, when did you discover her? Did you discover her during that early period?
No, and honestly, I was trying to remember. I need to go dig back through my Instagram feed and see when I posted my first Tiny Store pickup. But I think, if I recall, the way I found out about you, Macy, was through Leanna Lynn's Wonderland, which is yeah. And so for those that don't know, Leanna Lynn's is kind of a cute little shop actually near Pasadena. And so I'm actually hoping to go meet her and check out her shop if I can get to DCon this year. But I think it was your Tiny Stores. So she makes these cute little miniature dinosaur figures out of clay. And as I've said before, the smaller it is, the cuter it is. And I can't resist. So, yeah.
Teresa loves the small stuff. So basically, what I think is interesting is you actually started out, or you kind of blew up from fan art. I know a lot of artists will give other artists black eyes for not doing or following their original art, and they don't like it when other artists work off of IPs if they don't have the license. But I think in many cases that's okay. Like you would have gotten noticed, but I think you got noticed faster through the fan art. Like that's kind of what blew you up, and now people took notice of your original art, and then there you go.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. Like I try not to sell too many licensed characters, just because I really, I like making my own stuff anyway, because there's a certain strange feeling that comes from, getting paid and getting notoriety off of someone else's characters that you're just doing fan art from. So like I want my own original ideas to be what I'm known for, but man, if you don't get so many likes and so many hits from licensed characters, I mean, people just look for those things because they already have an emotional attachment to them. And so, when you hashtag like Bob's Burgers, like Linda Belcher, Bob Belcher, like people find you that way. So, making fan art, not necessarily selling it, could be a really good way to get noticed. And that's absolutely what happened to me, which is, the only experience that I can speak for.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's really cool. I mean, you see it all the time, especially conventions now, all the fan art and all the stuff going on. I think what really people that are doing that are really just hoping for, hey, I'm a big fan of this license, and here's something that I thought was fun for this, and hoping they're representing that license or the IP the best way possible. But on the side, they're hoping that people take notice of their other artwork, and I have no problem people making a dime on other IPs so long as it's not like hurting the IP or they're making a huge living solely doing pop culture art that they're not licensing. But it's a great way to get noticed.
Absolutely. And if the artist has a certain connection to the licensed characters that they're making. Like I loved Bob's Burgers. Like that was before I ever sold anything. So I was making that just because I loved them. And I thought, let's make them snails. This is a weird idea. I like that, Yeah. So it just, if you can tell that the artist has a passion behind what they're doing and they really, really love that particular cartoon or character or whatever, I think that's a little bit different. But yeah, I don't have a problem with it either. I think it's, my own little artist ego that wants to be known more for my original things and my fan art.
Yeah, definitely. And with the fan art too, like, the fans could do more stuff with the license than what the licensors would actually probably allow, which is I think pretty unique. Like you turned them into turtles. Like I don't know that maybe
snails.
Oh, I'm sorry, snails. And I don't know that maybe the license would never let that happen. I know. Yeah. I'm sorry, turtles, snails, same thing, right?
No. They're shelled. No. They're both shelled. They both carry their shell on their back. Their home on their back.
Yeah.
But no, it's a good point. I mean, it's a liberty that they probably wouldn't have necessarily allowed, but it's a really cool spin on it. And that's what I think is always fun about fan art in some regards, is that there are people out there who can take a concept and do it very interestingly or convert it in a way you may not have thought, or even like weird mashups. Like I think it's fun to see, like, I don't know, people mash up like Baymatch and Stitch or like stuff out there and they come up with something that probably never I would have ever thought of, but it's cool to see. So I'm a fan of fan art in certain cases.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. There's so much great fan art out there, and it's something that maybe whoever the IP holder was or whatever, they might not mass produce whatever that fan art was, in quantities of 10,000 pieces. But if the artist was then to take it and then make a run of, say, 30 pieces and make 30 super fans of that show really happy, I don't think a licensor is going to have much problem with that. It's the really bad stuff, like those Calvin and Hobbes vinyl stickers where you see Calvin peeing on something. That's absolutely something that Bill Watterson would not want out there, But I think there's good fan out there that the IP holder is going to want out there. It's really going to help market them. And I know someone listening is like, no, Gary, that's illegal. They're not allowed to do it. But I think in some cases there are instances where the fan art, being sold or not, is going to be helping that IP.
Yeah, and like Bento Box was really cool. I mean, they were the first people that contacted me and wanted to buy a set of the snails. So like they really love their fan art. There's particular companies that really actually encourage people to do that fan art, which I think is really neat. And Bento Box is one of those. And they invited me to come in for a table read, and I got to meet all the voice actors and everyone from the studios.
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
They love people who make fan art. It's a really just warm. Bento Box is a really warm company. I really appreciated meeting them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cool. When was that? 2014?
Don't ask me years. I'm so bad with years. It was about 3 years ago.
It really hasn't been that long.
It's been like 2.5, 3 years now.
Okay, I didn't think it had been too long. I was looking back and I found it looks like the first Tiny-saur I bought from you was February 2015. So not right away, but a couple years ago. So
yeah, close. I wasn't too long after. That's neat.
How is working for yourself treating you?
Oh, that's a question.
This is the first time you've actually done it, right? Since 2014? You hadn't done it previously?
No, I'd always had a corporate job.
Right. So that's interesting. So I know a lot of people that enter freelance life, and then they're like, man, this is not as fun as I thought it was going to be. Like, they just went into it thinking that they're going to full-time just to sketch and art and do exactly what they do. But it's not the case. You have to do marketing and find your next job and do accounting. There's a lot of business stuff that goes with being a freelancer that I think a lot of people don't initially look at. And so how's that been for you? How's that transition been?
That is absolutely true. When I first had dreams of quitting my job, the dreams in the 3 days that came between me being a graphic designer and a sculptor full time, I thought, I'm just going to sit at home and make art, be just like flowy dress wearing hippie who just sculpts all day. It's like, so not the case. Like some days I don't sculpt at all. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of accounting and email answering and marketing and things like that. But, I have a really fantastic team behind me. My dad was an accountant, and my brother is a professor of entrepreneurship. So I could not have had a better team. So all the nitty gritty yucky stuff that perhaps people who lean more right brain have a hard time with. I have two lovely men in my life with that.
All right.
So do they help you with, I mean, it sounds like from like finance perspective, they might help, but like, does your family also help with like, shipping and all that kind of stuff? Or are you kind of just like a one lady shop? You kind of do it all?
I'm a one lady shop. My whole family lives in Florida and I'm here. So I'm here in Arizona. So I do it all. My dad helps me balance my books and stuff. I do most of my accounting, but he checks my work and helps me with taxes and stuff like that. The real necessary stuff at the end of the month. But yeah, for the most part, it's all me.
Now, let me ask you this. I've heard a lot of people, when they go off and work for themselves versus the man doing the 40-hour work week. Have you found yourself working far more hours than you ever did for the man?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, every hour that I'm awake, I'm working, whether I'm thinking about something or I'm sketching an idea or I'm taking something to the post office or I'm ordering clay or, there's no difference between my personal time and my work time now. But, and part of that, I definitely have moments where I think back to, oh, yeah, I just had 9 to 5, then I got off work and I had happy hour and then I made some dinner and I watched a movie or went for a bike ride. Just like didn't have a care in the world. And there's a certain peacefulness to not being at work and not having to think about any of that. I mean, you just really can really let go, and that just doesn't happen anymore. But the fact that I'm doing it all for myself, and even though I am doing accounting and I'm running the post office and I'm doing inventory and stuff like that, the fact that it's to further my own creative ideas and my own creative career, it makes it worth it. I mean, it's hard and it's real stressful, but it's so worth it. There have been moments, where I thought, oh my God, am I cut out for this? Can I motivate myself? Like, it's been tough. It's not all just been a cakewalk, but in the end, it's really paid off.
Sure.
So I'm a lot happier now.
Well, it's great to hear. I'm glad it's really working out for you.
Thanks.
polymer clay creations are I feel like they kind of sit in a different kind of space. Like there's kind of a whole, I feel like, community out there just about polymer clay, like people who create miniatures and all sorts of stuff if you kind of dig out in the Instagram world. And so like to me, like it kind of fits a niche of designer toys, but it also fits a different world. And so I know you go to, shows like Decon, but I think you also go to lots of other kind of arts and crafts type shows, right?
I've done a couple. I mean, Decon really is my jam. I've done like some of the Jackalope Arts things, and I've done a couple of First Fridays here in Phoenix, and I did one Comic-Con, but DesignerCon really is kind of where I fit in. It's funny that you mentioned polymer clay in particular because I kind of feel like sometimes it's a medium that's not really taken very seriously. Like it's sort of a stepping stone to something else. Like, people will make a prototype out of polymer clay and then cast it in resin or, do something else with it. And so I feel like it's gaining more traction as something that like can be considered serious, but it's been sort of like an arts and craftsy thing for a long time.
Yep.
And that's something that I've struggled with a little bit, but I think that it is starting to get taken a little bit more seriously when I see other polymer clay artists, there's people who are way better than me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's really what it's meant for. That's what I should be like trying to do. But yeah, no, I mainly do designer con. I do much better online than I do at some of those arts and craft shows. I think that at some of the arts and craft shows, people don't necessarily want to pay the prices that you would need to get paid for the amount of time that it takes to sculpt something, versus something that's like cast resin or something like that, or a piece of jewelry. It's like it's a tchotchke that sits on your shelf. And unless you're particularly looking for something like that, which the people who come to Designer Con, they know that they're paying for something handmade, and they already appreciate that because they're there. I think that a lot of people at arts and crafts places just don't really get it as much.
Yeah, I think I do an arts and crafts fair, especially like a street fair. If someone sees something over $20, they'll be like, "You see what she's charging for that? Jeez."
Yeah. So my little capsule machine where I sculpt like tiny little charms does really, really well there. And there's people, they love my work. People just stand there and ogle and come back to my booth. But trying to get people to pull the trigger is pretty hard. So I mainly sell online, but Designer Con, yeah, that's definitely my jam.
Okay. I was just curious.
But it is really fun to like see people react in person. And so that's one reason why I've like kept doing little things here and there is when, I'm selling online, I don't get to see someone's face when they're witnessing my art for the first time, which that's really, really gratifying. So being able to interact with people face to face is great. And, I've become a little bit of a hermit since I work for myself at home alone now. It's just me and my dog Tango. So sometimes doing those things gets me out and talking to people too.
Yeah. Definitely. And the designer toy I'm sorry, I still tell you Designer Toy Con, but it's Designer Con. And originally started out as the VTN, the Vinyl Toy Network, and ever since they changed it to Designer Con, it's just really blown up and just much more representational of just the independent artist as a whole, but without being arts and craftsy. You know what I mean? So I was kind of curious, like, do you feel like you're part of the designer toy scene, or how aware are you of designer toys? Do you collect? Do you know what I'm getting at?
Oh yeah, totally. I collect some. I've gotten into the community kind of around the same time that I started sculpting myself. So, At the time that I took a almost 50% pay cut to do what I loved, I started finding all these toys that I wanted to buy. So I collect as much as that I can. I don't feel like I'm completely part of the community yet. I want to sculpt a little bit more over some blanks and try to kind of go in that direction. Mm-hmm. I'd like to try to start painting as well. I have not done much painting. I've only done sculpting. I don't paint any of my sculptures. So I want to try doing those things. I'm really interested in that and I really love it. I don't know that I've like fully immersed myself in the community yet, but I want to get there. I also want to try making my own blank, maybe of a tiny sword or something like that other people can customize.
Oh, you know what? There's a contest through Martian Toys called the Next Great Blank.
What? I haven't seen that.
I will send you a link after the recording, but so Martian Toys is doing this Next Great Blank, and I think you have till October, but you submit it, and if they like it and they pick you, they produce it. So
I would love that. That sounds great.
And you actually make money in it too. You get royalties and all that good stuff.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would totally love to see some customs from you and like the toy world. I mean, it's kind of would be, sort of related, I think, to what the bots do, where they kind of have potentially, if you take a spin of polymer clay being sculpted on top of the figures, or to your point, trying something new with painting, Do you feel like that's kind of the appeal of polymer clay a bit? Because like whenever I've tried a few customs, that's always the hardest part for me. I love the sculpt, but when it comes to picking the paint palette and applying the paint, that's the hardest part for me. So I could see a lot of appeal to having the colors already sort of built in. And as you sculpt, you're kind of painting, so to speak, while you build. Is that kind of part of the appeal for you?
Yeah.
Just in case we have listeners that aren't too familiar with polymer clay we should probably just describe it for them before they get lost. So polymer clay it's essentially it's a pre-colored clay. You know, a lot of people will just work in sculpting and it's just pink or gray, but polymer clay comes in a wide variety of colors and such. So, well, I mean, maybe Macy can explain it better. You want to take over, Macy?
Sure. Yeah. Polymer clay, you're right. It is available in a wide variety of colors, and you can also take those colors and mix them and make your own custom colors. And Teresa, I really, really liked what you said about it's almost like painting with clay. I never put it in those words, and I really, really like that. And it's very true. So yeah, when I sculpt with polymer clay, the clays are already colored either in like the standard colors that they come in or something that I've mixed. And so there's no color addition afterwards. And so I have done a couple blanks, and so you are literally building the entire character as you go, colors and all. You don't sculpt like in a beige and then paint over it. So yeah, I would like to do some more of those things. I've done a couple, and it just seems like the amount of time it takes to do that. Like if I'm trying to sell something, like, you know, I at this point, you know, doing this full time as my career, you have to balance being able to sell an object that you're making and just doing it for the sake of art, which is a really, really hard thing to justify in my brain. So, you know, when I make a blank right now, the amount of time that it takes for me to sculpt over something like that, I have a hard time selling it for that cost. And the bots are a huge inspiration to me. I absolutely love them. Their sculpts are amazing. I love everything that they do. I'm completely obsessed. So yeah, that's a direction that I would like to move into. I think that with time and, you know, doing more of them and not having to worry, you know, not necessarily worrying about like, oh, if I make this, I need to sell it. Like I could come into that realm. But as of yet, you know, I have been trying to make it as an independent artist for the last few years. And so generally the time that I spend sculpting right now, I'm thinking about like, how can I sell this also? It's definitely 2 parts marketing, 1 part being an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I imagine it's pretty tricky and pretty limiting only working with the colors that you're given in polymer clay. When you're all done, do you ever add paint over it?
No, I never add paint. I mix all my own colors. I hardly use any of the colors just as they come.
Okay, so you can mix and match the colors and create your own colors. Okay.
Oh, yeah. You can also add pigments. You can add powdered pigments to the clay to make them sparkly or completely different colors. So you have a pretty wide palette when it comes to polymer clay.
And polymer clay is similar to Sculpey, right? Where it stays kind of soft as you're working it, and then you have to bake it to harden it.
Yeah, actually, Sculpey is a brand of polymer clay. So polymer clay is the actual medium, and Sculpey is the brand. So yeah, it stays soft. It's a plastic and oil based clay, so it stays soft until you bake it, which is awesome. So you know you don't have to worry about covering it or wrapping a wet paper towel around it or whatever. You can just keep on working until you're happy with it, and that's a really really fun part of the medium.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I see some appeal. I might have to give it a go, just to not have to worry about paint application and kind of just the colors are part of it. But I could see also having to be like really careful to not get like a dog hair or an eyelash or a piece of dust like stuck in that clay. Like how do you have like a specific area you work in, or do you wear gloves, or like how do you get around keeping your clay clean?
Oh, that is a huge, huge part of it, especially when you're working in lighter colors. I mean, you have to keep your workspace immaculate. And that's actually one of the most asked questions that I get from people who are just starting out and want to start learning polymer clays. How do you keep it so clean? Or how do you keep from, putting fingerprints in your clay? And yeah, you just wash your hands all the time. You wipe off your workspace all the time. You really scrape your hands with a paper towel and maybe some hand sanitizer between colors. Like if you're going from red to white, like if you work with red clay and then you put your fingers in white clay, you're going to make pink clay. So you really have to be careful about cleaning your hands and cleaning your workspace and cleaning all of your tools in between that. And yeah, every time I sit down in my workspace, I wipe off my whole entire table, the glass, all the tools, everything, because, there's a whole bunch of dust, and I have a dog hair flying through the air. I live in Arizona. There's dust everywhere, so it's just a constant war trying to keep everything clean, especially when you're working in really light colors. Like your worst nightmare is something that someone wants in black and white. So it's like the two opposite ends of the spectrum. You have to work with black clay, and then you have to go work with white clay, and you have to work with black clay, and you have to work with white clay. So you have to keep everything clean in between that.
Oh man.
So you don't wear gloves or anything? You like to work? I mean, I'd feel weird probably trying to work in gloves, but you just work straight with your fingers and just have to wash a lot between.
Yeah. I have never tried to work with gloves. I know some people do, but I need that like skin to clay tactile sensation to know what I'm doing. I mean, I guess I don't know. I've never tried wearing gloves, but the idea of it turns me off. So,
well, Serious Silly K wears, like, I don't even want to say it, but she called them finger condoms. But they're like individual finger covers. So like if you only wanted to cover, say, like one of your fingers or whatever, you have to go check out on her page. I think she posted a picture of it.
She's awesome. I love her work. Honestly, like when I started sculpting and started gaining a little bit of traction on Instagram and started searching for other people like me, because I wasn't even super aware of the community, she was one of the first people that I saw, and I instantly fell in love with her work. And I was like, oh, wow, this is neat. Like I can do something like that. That's really, really cool. I didn't know she used gloves. That's an interesting little factoid.
Yeah, but I think what you're talking about, how you kind of sort of feel that polymer clay doesn't have maybe the respect that you like sort of feel that it should. It seems almost like an artsy craftsy or almost more hobby. But I think with people like yourself, Beastlies and the bots, and a lot more artists working at it more prominently today and getting more exposure, especially in the designer toy scene. They're doing shows and all that sort of stuff. I think that polymer clay is finally starting to be like more recognized as a respectable medium.
I totally agree. Yeah, I think it's moving in that direction, which I really like. And maybe part of why I felt that way is because that I did feel that way. It's something that I played with when I was a lot younger, and a lot of people do play with it when they're younger. And I think that people kind of liken it to Play-Doh, and so I think that that's kind of like where that comes from. But once you get in the scene, in the toy and kind of like especially like the lowbrow kind of pop surrealist scene, like, people do take it more seriously, and it is moving in that direction, which I really appreciate because I adore it. I mean, I haven't tried other kinds of clay. I'm a very, very new sculptor, so this is just, my kind of entry medium, but I love it and want to keep working with it. And yeah, I think it's going in the right direction.
Are you entirely self-taught, or did you actually, once you started enjoying sculpting, did you take any lessons at maybe Scottsdale Community College or anything like that?
No, I haven't taken any lessons, but I would like to. I would really, really like to. I mean, I do pretty well, like having taught myself, so I can, it excites me to think of what I might be able to do if I took some classes. So that is something that once I am able to slow down my role a little bit, I want to do that. I would really, really love to do that because I think I have a lot to learn.
A lot of your stuff is really tiny. When you're working as small as you do, like where the sculpt fits in the palm of your hand, do you need to work with armatures and applying the polymer clay over like tinfoil base and all that sort of stuff first, or do you just go right and the whole thing is entirely polymer clay?
I mean, even working pretty small, I mean, if it's like, the size of my first digit of my thumb or something, like I won't put tinfoil on that, but anything bigger than like the size of a quarter, I'll put tinfoil underneath. And of course, like, if there's a thin projection coming out, I'll put wire under that. So I've done a little bit of armature work, and that has all just been, I didn't even know what an armature was. Like I was doing that before I even knew the word armature, because I was like, oh wow, I made this little thin projection, and it broke off in shipping, because like I said, like I was teaching myself how to sculpt while people were paying for it. So I was learning all these things as I went. I'm like, oh, I guess I could put wire under that, and that would probably stay.
Yeah.
So I've been teaching myself how to make the wheel when I could have done a little research, but I just I was just struggling to keep my head above water with all the orders that I was getting. So yeah, I do some armature work, but mainly just tinfoil, especially because a lot of the things that I make tend to be like really cute and chubby and round. So yeah, right. I'll generally start with a block of tinfoil and then just kind of add to that.
Okay.
So wait, there's tinfoil in some of my larger tiny saws?
Oh, in all of them there is. Yeah, it's got a metal core. It's got a heart of stone.
Teresa, you should try breaking one. See what's inside.
Yeah. Now I'm just gonna go kill this cute thing so I can see inside.
That's what I did when I was a kid. I used to break all my toys to see, what was inside the Stretch Armstrong or something like that.
I mean, it's cool because like it's still got good weight. It doesn't feel like a weird hollow thing inside of it. So I mean, I would never have known, right? I mean, it's not like it's kind of a hidden thing. The only thing I was gonna ask that I'm just curious of is like, choosing polymer clay, like it just happened to be the thing that you were playing around with, and so you just stuck with it? Or was there like a conscious decision of why polymer clay was what you chose to kind of dabble in at the beginning?
Well, I played with it when I was really young. I had always been really into working with different mediums when I was a kid. My parents just got me all the art supplies that they possibly could because that's all I wanted to do. And so I remember working with polymer clay when I was young, and a couple years ago, and I thought, I want to do something with my hands. I want to sculpt. I was like, I remember playing with Sculpey. I want to do that again. And so I picked that up, and yeah, it just went from there. It just took off.
I have to also ask, when we talk about sculpting tiny things and armatures and all that, I just need to know. So, like, Gary, you may not have seen it, but Macy does the smallest of small, like the absurd, like the smallest thing you can think of. So some of these things she does are these like globe rings. So picture like a flat surface, and then she puts like a half circle globe on top that would like, would be a glass globe that the sculpt can sit inside. Okay. But like she will sculpt a mini Totoro scene holding a leaf, or like a duck sitting in a pond with lily pads. And it's like absurdly tiny. And so like, I can't imagine you're doing that with your fingers. Are you?
Yeah, I just use my hands. I mean, I barely use any tools when I sculpt. It's all my little tiny fingers, and I do have really tiny, tiny hands. I've always been inclined to work really small. I love miniatures. My aunt was collecting miniatures for me before I was even born. And so I've always really loved tiny things. It was kind of like bred into me, I guess. And I'm inclined to make everything very small. I actually kind of joke around that if I wasn't called Simon Says Macy, I'd call myself Again, but smaller.
Did you say you're not using tools?
No, really the tool that I use is like a ball tool. Like it's like a sphere to like make a cavity for the eyeball to go into. Yeah. But besides that, it's all my hands.
Wow. Okay.
So,
and sometimes like a needle tool to put some texture on, but that's about it.
Huh.
So do you, like Totoro, for example. I've watched, some videos every now and again of, polymer clay and people building little charms and stuff. And some people will create like the pieces separately and then kind of overlay them on top. Is that the approach you take, where you're like doing individual little details and then applying them on like a base?
Yeah. So like if I was making a Totoro, like you were saying, like I'll give him like a little tiny body that kind of looks like an egg. And then I'll take a little white piece and I'll flatten it out. And then I'll apply that as like the white bit on his tummy. And then I'll roll out a tiny, tiny, tiny little snake to make the kind of, what would you even call those? They look like little upwards carrots, like to make the little texture in gray on his tummy. And then I'll roll out tiny little snakes to make his ears. And yeah, it's an additive way of sculpting. I don't do anything subtractive. I never carve anything out with tools. It's a very additive way to sculpt.
It's so intriguing that, because I've always figured there had to be tools to execute that. It's insane.
I think a lot of people use tools. And when I watch videos too, like I'll see people applying these tiny little details with tools, but it perplexes me. I can't do it with tools. I've tried. I'm like, oh, okay, that looks like maybe they're getting good results with that. And I'll just end up squishing it. I don't know. I have really sensitive fingers, I guess. Like that's how I have to do it.
So I guess when you're applying it, do you smooth it out with your finger so that it's not like a giant fingerprint, like as you're applying it?
Yeah. And that's actually the second most asked question is, how do you get them so smooth? And people ask, do you sand them after you bake them? And when I first started sculpting and realized that it was going to be a career, I looked into it a little bit and tried to get a couple techniques from the pros. And everyone said that you sand them after you bake them, but you try to smooth them out as much as you can before you bake them, so you don't have to do that much sanding. And me, with my crazy OCD brain, I'm like, well, I'm going to make it completely smooth, so I never have to do any of that. Like I kind of take everything to the nth degree. And so, yeah, I smooth them out with my thumb. And the advice that I give people when they ask me how to do that, and this sounds a little strange, but say, imagine there's like a smudge of chocolate on a baby's cheek. You take your thumb and you wipe it hard enough that you're going to get that chocolate off, but soft enough that you're not going to hurt that baby. So you kind of wipe it with that sort of motion and that kind of strength, and that will smooth all the fingerprints out of your piece.
So you don't use like turpenoid or rubbing alcohol or anything like that?
Nothing. I have tried that, and it's a mess, and I hate it. I may not be doing it right. I don't know. I'm not a pro.
No, this is interesting. You're doing it so differently than how I've always imagined it. Like you mentioned, you're more additive than subtractive, and I know a lot of sculptors will just make a giant ball of clay and then just essentially carve. But you're adding, and that's a different approach than probably what I'm more used to.
I've tried to do the subtractive stuff because, you know, when I started thinking about pouring resin and stuff, I think that the additive way creates a lot of little undercuts and some strange seams that, you know, resin won't really pick up on well, or it might grab the mold too hard. And so I've tried some subtractive ways, and that's actually a lot harder for me, which is why I think I should probably take some sculpting classes.
But I mean, it makes sense because, like, it's pretty common, I think, with polymer clay, or at least just with smaller, that kind of side of things. I feel like a lot of people are building up more than like creating a block and tearing it down, because if you think of it again, you've got colors kind of as part of the clay. So you're sort of creating the piece as a whole versus taking a chunk, making a shape, and then, you know, coloring it up. So it makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. I get it.
To me, like, the first thing that I really did well was to draw. And the way that they teach you to do that, or the way that I was taught to do that, is to break things down into shapes. So, you know, if you're drawing like the head of a horse, there's sort of like nose muzzle, which can start out as a small circle. And then there's kind of the large cheek that's a big circle. And then you kind of put a rectangle between it. And so that is, you know, from the untrained sculptor, that's how I started to sculpt, is to break shapes or break animals or whatever you're making down into those shapes, and you add them. And then, you know, once you squish them on there, you kind of make them look like they're conjoined, or it's all one part of the same larger creature. But yeah, it's not as intuitive to me to start with a block and start carving out the negative spaces. But it's something that I'd like to do.
So you sound like you have the same problem I do, a little bit. It's a lot of work for yourself. And the fact that I work in wood, and because of that, every single arm, finger, head, body, every single piece has to be cut out. Yeah, I could cast that stuff, but then it's no longer wood. And I'm sure the casting and stuff can kind of pick up on some of the, you know, the texture of the wood and stuff like that, but then you have to faux paint it to make it look like wood. And it sounds like it's kind of the same situation when you're working in colored polymer clay. The magic of it is the finished piece is the colored clay. There's no painting in it. And so if you ever want to do multiples, you would have to cast it and then hand paint it. So is it accurate in saying that every single thing that you do is 100% hand sculpted and every piece is original and unique?
Yeah, everything is completely handmade.
Wow, you're causing a lot of work for yourself. Why do you do that?
I know. It's all I know. It's all I know. I mean, I will eventually get into resin, but, like, you know, I'm building the plane as it's flying here.
You know, Gary, there's an appeal to that, you know, from a collector side of it being like, you know, the original piece versus the copy of it. You know, I think it's cool to know that it's, even though, you know, Macy's made a bunch of tiny swords or turtle burgers or rings or what have you, yours really is one of a kind, because, you know, it's never ever going to be exactly like that one ever again.
Yeah, I totally agree, but at the same time, her poor little fingers and her eyes doing these tiny little things. Give them a rest and, you know, cast multiples and maybe go that route. Not for all your releases, but maybe for a few of the more popular designs.
Well, I mean, that's gonna happen here in the not so distant future with Kapocalypse. We're gonna start making some lines and having those mass produced. So we're gonna reach a different corner of the market with some of my designs.
Kapocalypse.
Is there a special project you've been hinting at on your Instagram the past couple weeks?
It sure is. Yeah, I've been working with a business partner who actually I met at the first designer con. Within, I think, the first year that I was sculpting, I met my partner David Chua there, and it was his dream to bring the Japanese gachapon culture to the U.S. And
nice.
Yeah, and so for people who may not know exactly what that is, it's the capsule machines that are in Japan, and they're actually nice little sculptures that are very collectible. It's not just like the bouncy balls and sticky hands that you see like in the grocery stores here. And so he asked if I would like to sculpt some lines and help him make this a reality. And so we have been working towards that the last couple of years. And now we're setting up our LLC and we're in production, and I should get the first prototypes here in a couple weeks.
Sweet.
Awesome.
And this is the Kapocalypse that you just mentioned like a couple minutes ago.
Kapocalypse.
Kapocalypse.
a little bit of a tongue teaser.
Yeah, it's a little hard for a mumbler like me. But so you mentioned that you designed several lines. How many lines did you actually design for this?
I have designed about 8 lines.
Wow.
We are going to we're going to release 3 of them. We are hoping that that will be at DesignerCon this year in Pasadena this November. We are on track for that, but no promises. But yeah, we are going to release 3 lines of 8 different sculptures.
Man, you designed a lot of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if everything works out, you'll have 3 lines available at DesignerCon. And so how many in each line? Maybe like 5 or 8 pieces per line? So potentially 28 pieces?
Yeah, yeah, potentially. Not of my own lines. There's going to be 3 of mine, and then we're going to bring some already made lines over from Japan. There's going to be some licensed characters. There's going to be some other just, cutesy things. And we just kind of want to see in general how the gachapon culture does over here and see like how my lines kind of add up and how they sell in comparison to some of the already made lines. So there's going to be a little bit of a mixed bag. We're just giving it a shot.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm trying to understand when you say lines. What is a line?
They're a little bit more varied. So like one of the lines is like animal food mashups. So I have like a squid that looks like a bomb pop, and I have a panda that's a donut. So like that is going to be a line. There's 8 different animal food mashups.
Okay.
So then you're trying to collect them all. Got to catch them all.
Okay, cool. Is the thought or the plan that like they'll literally like, so one of the things that I think we lack is like, say Vinyl Artist Gacha, if we were over in Japan, we would literally go into a gachapon store and I'd have to go up, put in my money or whatever, spin the thing and get one out, and I have no idea if I'm going to get one I want. So I assume you're going to bring that capsule culture. So like if you had them all set up, it's just going to be a bunch of machines. You got to kind of spin your luck and go for it.
Exactly.
Fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And kind of the reason why we connected at DesignerCon is I have always brought my own little capsule machine, but I hand sculpt all the little charms that are in it. I bought this old school gumball machine on eBay just because I've always been a capsule fanatic. So when I realized that I could incorporate that into my business, I started making little charms. And David, having the dream of bringing that culture over here, saw that and also connected with my work. And that's how we kind of got started.
That's awesome. DesignerCon, place to connect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you maybe some you want to keep a surprise, but do you want to reveal any of the other sculpt themes or lines that you're working on aside from the animal food mashup one?
Sure, yeah, I can tell you what the other ones are. Another one is going to be a little line of mushrooms, which I have teased a little bit on my Instagram. So there are all these different little characters of mushrooms that have different tops. Like one of the tops looks like a strawberry, and one of the tops looks like a pond that has a little frog sitting on a lily pad. And so each of the tops of the mushrooms is a different little theme. And the other line is called Chubbies, and they are very, very round little animals. Like there's an octopus, which obviously has like a round head, but then there's also like an alligator who has a really fat body. I don't know if you've ever seen that YouTube video that was viral like a couple of years ago, like if African animals were balloons or if African animals were round or whatever. I kind of get inspiration from that. So they're very, very fat little chubby animals.
Cool.
Okay.
I know that you're like maybe you did the prototypes in polymer clay or what have you, but are these going to be resin?
They're going to be a plastic. I can't remember exactly what plastic that's going to be, but yeah, they're going to be in plastic. I think PVC, maybe?
Yeah, I would think probably
Yeah.
PVC, which is a vinyl. PVC and vinyl is vinyl. It's just done through a different process called injection molding. And that's usually why you have the seam down the sides, and they tend to be like the heavier, more solid figures.
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be via injection molding. So that is
Okay.
what they will be. And yeah, they're going to be really small, capsule size. They're the biggest the biggest dimension is going to be 2.5 inches. So they're a little bit larger capsules, but yeah, they're all molded and casted, and they're going to,
Very
yeah.
cool.
It's kind of your first go at production pieces, really.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. David's the mastermind behind all that. He has all the connections for getting things actually produced, and I'm just kind of the creative.
That's cool. So yeah, I guess
That's kind of a leak and sneak peek, don't you think, Teresa?
yeah, we totally skipped over it.
We did. So maybe we should do that segment real quick and then just consider that Macy's contribution to leaks and sneak peeks, and then we can just run through ours real quick, and then we'll just get back to talking to you, Macy.
Sure.
Okay, before we get doing that then, let's just go ahead and take a brief break and mention some sponsors of the show. So we have printsonwood.com. So if you're an artist or a photographer and you've ever wanted to have your artwork or photography printed on beautiful sustainable wood, then head on over to printsonwood.com for a wide variety of services. They've worked with tons of artists helping them with their limited fine art prints, and they can do the same for you. And then we have a couple toy stores on the docket for you. So we got 3dretro.com, and they also have a physical store out there in Southern California. I believe it's Burbank adjacent. Here's the beautiful store, so be sure to check that out. And then there's StrangeCatToys.com. And if you happen to visit StrangeCatToys.com, be sure to use promo code Marsham at checkout to receive 10% off your entire order. And then, representing the blogosphere, and for all your daily designer toy news, definitely be sure to check out SpankyStokes.com and thetoychronicle.com. And actually, the Toy Chronicle now has an app available in both the Google Play Store and the App Store. So if you want to download that, just search the Toy Chronicle in either one of those app stores, and you'll have all your daily designer toy news at the click of a button of an app. So that's pretty awesome. All right, so we're going to start off doing some leaks and sneak peeks here. Macy just did hers with Kapopcalypse, and so we'll run through ours real quick. And so anyone who's not familiar, leaks and sneak peeks is the segment of the show where we just pretty much share and discuss anything that we might have seen on social media this week or a toy blog that we just want to help spread the word on. So, Teresa, why don't you go first?
Sure. So actually, I feel like this has been since we talked to Gary about 2 weeks ago than about a week ago since we did a early recording.
Yeah.
I feel like since we last talked, lots of juicy good stuff has caught my eye.
I know,
which
a
makes
lot
me
of stuff.
happy.
I know.
So, right? I mean, I feel like some weeks we're like, I'm not really sure, but this week I was like, I had a ton to I want to just talk about so many things.
Yeah, totally. You got almost too many things. Your list was almost too big.
Yes.
Narrow that list down.
I know. Well, one cool thing that I saw is Javier, who is behind the company called StickUp Monsters. He actually just did a new character design called Watari Kappa.
Kappa. Yeah, I love those.
And they are so adorable. So, like a typical Kappa character is kind of like a little turtle character, but it's like he took a spin and did some really cute color variations. It's got a little flower hat, petal hat on its head, and it's really pretty bright colors like pink and green and blue, and there's a pink and purple version, and instead of it just having a shell, he actually made the shell like a backpack it's wearing. And so it's just really, really cute. And so it's a new design by him, and it's going to be available at this toy show. It's Plays Toys Forever, I think it's putting on, but it's supposed to be released online as well after the show. And so I'm so excited. I don't know a lot of details about how big it is or cost or anything like that. But if you go to Javier's Instagram, it's got a cute little backstory about the character, about how it's a young Kappa girl who lived in a little pond and all this kind of stuff. So it's got a cute little story if you're into that too.
Yeah, no, I like that piece a lot.
So
it's really hard not to say cute when describing that one too.
It's so cute. You should go check it out, Macy. It's adorable.
I will. That sounds really cute. I love turtles too.
If anyone's actually playing the cute drinking game on this episode, I'm sorry. You are going to have a hangover tomorrow.
But I like that it's kind of more simplistic sculpt, some details here and there, but, more on the cleaner side, not a ton of texture, and it's perfect. It's cute. So that was one. Can I do another, Gary?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So the second one, Peter Kato is pretty well known for his bedtime bunnies.
Yep.
And so he's done, a bunch of resins and some vinyl runs with clutter and all of that. So I kind of haven't seen, many bedtime bunnies from him recently. And so I was excited because actually through someone else's account, it's the artist, and I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong, it's a Japanese artist. It's Emi Takano, Eimi. And so she is this Japanese artist, and you may know her from doing various shows like Clutter and such, where she does these kind of character creations. A lot of what she does is these donut head shaped animals. So like a duck with a donut head or a bear with a donut head. And she uses a variety of materials like resin bases, or she'll even use foam, almost like sponge to create her characters. But anyway, she and Peter are doing this collaboration where it's going to be a donut head bedtime bunny, and it is
cover your ears.
Adorable, cute,
So cute.
It's so cute, and it's got the donut head bunny with a cute little face, and then on the slippers are little donuts on the slippers, so it's like donut.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's super cute, and it's in a prototype. She just released kind of a teaser of the prototype, so it's not coming right away, but it got me all giddy, as you can tell, and I'm excited, and I want it, and it needs to come.
You need to inject just a little more enthusiasm into your pieces. So there's no release date or price point?
No, I actually, I've messaged Peter because I was like, Peter, I want information. I want this thing. When can I get this thing? And so he's kind of, similar, I think, to Macy, where they're trying to get it done and hopefully have it soon, but they don't really know for sure when they'll have it done. But I do know that it's going to be resin and plan to do various colorways and color versions and stuff. So
everyone's just a bunch of teases.
I know. Everyone's just teasing me. Although the one from Javier is more, it's soon. Like, I feel like I could buy it soon. Everything else is more just teasing me. Okay. I'll just do those two. I could keep going, I feel like, Gary, forever and always.
Oh, I'm sure you could.
So I'll pass.
What you don't know, Macy, is that on a daily basis, Teresa will send me like direct messages from Instagram of things she's seen and be like, this is super cute. Oh my God, this is super cute. Oh, this is adorable. And just so many things on a daily basis. And so she would love to come on here and just talk about like 10 pieces every week, but I have to have to narrow it down.
We should literally try to do, like, if we ever have like a crap ton of leaks, Gary, and we don't have like a plan for the week, we should just literally do a leak and sneak episode.
Yeah. What I'd actually like to do is a happy hour episode where we all drink, and maybe throughout the week we save up. We don't look at social media, or at least toy blogs that week. And then
crazier than
while
I
we're
already
like
am.
getting a little buzz, we start searching the toy blogs, and just whatever happens. There's a show called Drunk History, and maybe we can get a little drunk toy.
You realize that like neither of us drink.
I know, but I'll let myself drink. I know.
Just
don't
I'm
do
not
it.
saying I won't. Like I don't drink social, but I'm not saying I don't drink at all. I'm saying I rarely drink. So literally I have a beer and I would be.
Well, I'm the same way. I have one.
Even better. It'll make it even better.
Yeah, I get one strawberryta in me, and I'm whirly.
We need to still try what is it, Zima that came back?
Zima? I've tried it. I was in my 20s when that thing came out. So I've tried it, but if you want to give it a shot, you got a limited time. You got to get to the grocery store and try it.
Did you ever find it? Because I've been trying to keep my eye out to see because we were talking about it, and I didn't know what Zima was, Macy, because Gary's old and I'm not, and I don't know what he was talking about.
Little jab.
But so I was like, I know about like Mike's Hard Lemonade and all that kind of stuff. I was like, I don't know what heck Zima is. And so we were Googling it, and it's like this old school kind of girly drink almost. And apparently they're bringing it back. But I still, every now and again, I try to check the alcohol beer aisle at the local Kroger, and I haven't seen them yet.
No luck, huh?
We'll see. If I can find it, I'll bring it to the happy hour party. It'll be fun.
Okay. All right, so let's bring it back to toys.
Okay, Gary.
So it's my turn.
Give us your leaks.
Okay, so I have a couple, and so you already mentioned a couple super cute ones, and so actually I have one that the Fluffyhouse out there in Hong Kong. They're pretty popular with their line of character work and all that sort of stuff, and so they've teamed up with actually Coarse, and they're doing some designs for the Coarse Omen, which is a very popular owl platform that they do. And so the platform is like 4 or 5 inches tall, and they're going to do, looks like 2 designs in 2 different colorways. And what's interesting about it is they're not like heavy character based like most people do when they get an opportunity to work on a platform. These ones are almost like skinning, like almost like a wallpaper treatment on the platform. And it's like, one is pretty much a solid blue with just a bunch of clouds on it. And the other one is like a grayish color with like rain drips and little clouds with happy faces and stuff like that. So that's an interesting take, and I actually kind of like it. It kind of makes it more arty, and it's kind of a nice break away from the typical just character design style toy. I have not seen what a price point is yet, but I do know that the blue one with the clouds, that's going to be released at the Beijing Toy Show. There's a run of 500 on that one, so 450 of those are going to be available first at the Beijing Toy Show, and the remaining 50, or probably any of the remainders from the show, will be made available online. And as far as the gray one with the rain drips, I'm not sure. I haven't heard any information on that one. I'm hoping it's going to be the retail version where it's going to be a little more readily available and more easily obtained, but I'm not sure yet. So I would say just follow Fluffyhouse or Coarse on Instagram and stay up to date there.
So, Gary, I'm a little excited that I thought what I read was that both were releasing at that show, and then there was only going to be 50 pieces of each outside of the show. So it's exciting to me to hear that the gray one might be a separate kind of different release.
Well, don't quote me on that.
That's actually my favorite one too, and it's grown on me. When I first saw it, I wasn't sure how I felt about the decal approach. It just was different to me, and I wasn't sure how I felt about it. But I like how on the gray one, it still has kind of the traditional Mr. Cloud Fluffyhouse face on the owl, and then the decals around it. So I like that. I will tell you the blue one, my OCD, it bothers me that the main cloud is not centered. It's like slightly off to the left. And I'm like, no, it needs to be over in the middle. What are you doing?
No, that's the rule of thirds right there.
But it's like, no, center it. So I think they're cool. I mean, I'm super excited because as I've talked on previous episodes, I love Fluffyhouse. I think it's fun that they've done a collaboration, and hopefully there'll be a way for us to get them versus all of us trying to scrabble for only 50 online. Sounds a little bit stressful, but
I've been Googling everything that you guys have been talking about and following along. And yeah, I have to agree. I want that cloud to be centered.
Isn't it?
Okay.
It's like, because it's almost centered, Gary. It's like they're toying with us.
It's too close to center. Like, it has to be super off centered. It has to be dead center. Like, it's a tension point right now.
See, Gary?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would like some if they're going to do it that way, I would like to see some overlap over to the side. Like, you can see how it's kind of having a tangent with the side of the circular face. That kind of bugs me, but I don't think I would like it perfectly centered either. But but you see the one cloud, it's just on the face, but it doesn't carry over into the ruffle of the side of the face. So I guess in that regard, I would like to see that carry over a little bit more. But overall, I really like this approach that Fluffyhouse went with versus, translating it more in a character. It's cute. It's really, really cute. I hadn't seen these yet. So yeah, they're adorable.
I'm really trying not to get hooked, Gary, because I just have this feeling that I'm gonna just get all in and be like, yeah, I want these, and then I'm not gonna be able to get them. I just feel it. I feel it in my gut. I'm just gonna be disappointed. I hope.
I mean, it's probably going to happen. The Omens are highly popular. They're really hard to obtain. But that's what's great about... Well, that's what the designer toy scene needs is supply and demand. More demand than supply. That's what creates the hype. That's what collectors want. They want to feel like they got something that no one else did. And that's what drives the designer toy scene. We need more of that. We need more demand and less supply. And unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff just sitting around on shelves.
It's not the same, Gary. It's not the same.
No, I know. But everyone, I know that everyone wants what they want, but at the same time, like, the designer toy scene needs that supply and demand again. When stuff is just not selling out, that just hasn't been good for the toy scene. And one of the things that I noticed is that as I get older, my drive to possess is diminishing. Like, I'm perfectly okay if I don't get anything anymore. Like, I want it, but if I can't obtain it, it doesn't frustrate me or bother me as much as it used to. Like, I'm like, okay, it's, it was fun trying, but I didn't get it. Maybe that's just coming with my old age, but what you don't know, Macy, is it drives Teresa nuts when she can't obtain something. There was something that she missed. She missed out on a boy in a shark outfit by Sun Guts, and Sun Guts was actually at 5 Points Fest in New York, and for some reason, Teresa just... You weren't thinking, were you, Teresa? You knew they were there, but you just kind of walked right by their table and didn't see it, and then she saw the photos on social media afterwards, and it's eaten her up since like the last 3 months.
And you just got to keep bringing up my pain, don't you?
I do. I like to torture.
Oh, it's torture, Macy. I just want it so bad. It's just it just makes me so sad. But
I know. But so I do have one more Lincoln sneak peek, and I apologize. It's going to be another cute one, and I know the listeners. we need to be a little more well-rounded in our leaks and sneak peeks. I don't want to be like the cute leak and sneak peek hour. But, I mean, this is another cute one, and it's from Kidrobot, and they're going to be doing a licensed Carebears series. It looks like it's going to be 3 different artists, Tara McPherson, Linda Panda, and Julie West. And it looks like there's going to be 6.5-inch vinyl figures done by each artist. And what I like about it is it's artistic interpretation using the American Greeting license of the Care Bears. So when you look at the Care Bears, there's no doubt which artist did each one. And that's what I really like about it. And that's what I think most of the licensing should be like. It's awesome seeing the more generic licensing stuff too, but I think for the designer toy scene, it's nice to see that artist interpretation in there. One of the cool things about this also is that each designer got to do their own like sculpt as well. So it's not just using a platform and each artist is essentially, reskinning it with their design. Like each artist actually got to redesign it. And so they're all getting their own individual sculpts. I think that's really cool. And I think one of the coolest things about seeing this announcement is that Julie West is making a comeback. So anyone who's not familiar with Julie, she was a pretty prominent toy designer, but the last probably 5 years we haven't seen really, I don't think anything from her. She's been pretty quiet, but it looks like she's back in the fold with Kidrobot. She's done a lot of these designs with Kidrobot in the past. She's worked with Strange Co. So hopefully she's back, and we'll hopefully see more designs from her. And then Tara McPherson, as you know, she's already doing the really cool Wonder Woman with Kidrobot, and her Care Bear looks awesome. It's got a hole in the chest with a black and white rainbow going through the hole in the chest, and it kind of loops around the backside. That's awesome. And then there's Linda Panda's, and I believe this is Linda Panda's first actual production toy, although she was the designer in the collaboration Blind Box series with Kidrobot and Crayola. I believe it was called the Coloring Critters. I believe Linda was actually the designer on that entire series. I just don't think she got the credit for it, so I think this is her first credited vinyl toy release.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is like her first kind of standalone thing, I believe. That wasn't like a series or anything like that. But I agree. I think it's really cool that it wasn't like, oh, here's a Care Bear shape. We're just gonna apply, use the shape for everyone, and you just apply sort of a skin or a, a design to that. It's more of, hey, have free reign. Here's your theme, but kind of do with it what you will. And so I think it's nice that it basically gives them all a design that's very uniquely theirs. So I like them. They're cute, and I haven't decided, Care Bears is not something, I guess, for me as my, in my childhood that, I have kind of like a nostalgic feeling for, but I think they're great. And I think it's nice to see some larger pieces too. We talked a lot about how I go small, so it could be nice to pick one up and have a larger piece in my collection.
But I don't know if I like the 6.5 inches for them all. Like, I feel like when I look at Linda Panda's design, for some reason, even there's nothing showing the scale of it. There's no they don't have like a 3-inch dunny next to it to showing that it's a scale. But when I first saw the design, it just looks like a minifigure to me.
It does,
and I'm not sure why.
And that's the one that I'm dying over. Like I said, I'm Googling these as you're telling me about them. And the Linda Panda one is just adorable with the pink and the purple and the heart and the expression and everything. It's just right up my alley.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would see it as like between like 3.5 inches.
Yeah, and I think that's because it's just so uber cute, right? Like you just assume like the uber cute stuff should be smaller. And it gets a lot more cuter as it gets smaller. When I look at something like the Tender Heart by Tara McPherson, it feels more large scale to me. Like that one being 6.5 inches, that feels like a good size for that one.
Mm-hmm.
I gotcha. No, I see what you mean, because I agree. I think there are times where figures are made and it loses some of the cute factor by being made too big, and sometimes things work better in small scale. It's kind of like when we were talking about like the James Groman Fossil Pod series back in the day, like back when we were talking about 5 points.
Yeah.
Now we were weirdly attracted to them, but mostly probably because of their size, because they were much smaller, and had those been made, at this larger size, we probably wouldn't have been, attracted to it as much. So I agree. I think it would be kind of cool if they had, I don't know, created these in various scales,
and they might have, like you said, Kidrobot's doing carryover series from their 3-inch dunny series, and then they do a branch off in a 5-inch dunny now, and maybe that's what they're going to do with this series. Maybe they're going to be reincarnated as a maybe a smaller size, a keychain or a 3-inch or a charm or something down the line. But right now, they're all going to be about 6.5 inches. They're properly licensed from American Greetings, and no release date as of yet, but the price point is going to be $65.
It sounds high, considering that 8-inch dunnies lately have been around that, right?
Yeah, but keep them in mind, this is a license, so they're going to have to pay a little bit for the license, and they're all original sculpts, so that's all original molds and new sculpt fees and all that sort of stuff. So.
Okay. That's true.
But again, I mean, it is Carebears and it's licensed, so I imagine it's going to be a pretty large run size. So the larger the run size, the lower the price should be. So if this is, a run of over $500, then I would say these are probably pretty, maybe on the higher side.
Yeah, I got you. No, that's a good point, because I'm thinking about like the simple dunny shape kind of getting skinned versus, like the Jeru, clairvoyant ones and all of that. I know are higher price points, so that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's a really good price for the Terry McPherson one, given the rainbow and going through the heart. But when I look at the Linda Panda and the Julie West one, I don't see $65 when I look at those ones. And so I don't know. I feel like on those two, maybe a little cheaper. But again, licensing and new sculpts, and we don't know the run size yet, so it's really hard to say at this point.
I was just say I'm super happy for all the artists, because we're seeing some artists we haven't seen around for a while come back. We're seeing people get represented who haven't really, so I think it's great.
Yeah, no, I think Kidrobot's done a great job with this, this Care Bear artistic series, and they picked 3 great artists to represent the series, and well done. And so Macy, do you collect designer toys yourself at all?
I haven't actually started doing a whole lot of collecting myself because, like I said, when I kind of was first aware of the entire scene was right when I was quitting my day job in order to sculpt full time. So I've taken a serious pay cut. So I've really done most of my collecting just in my brain stuffs.
I get that.
I've definitely bought some blanks, and some of them that I fully intended on sculpting on top of, but kind of like I bought your Logan, I love it too much. I don't want to sculpt on top of it. It's too good. So I have more blanks than anything else. And that's partially, I think, because, I don't have that green to buy all the really cool toys with just yet. But I'd like to collect. I'd like to collect some of those things for sure.
No, I would love to see you start doing more custom shows and stuff like that. I would love to see what you would sculpt over, maybe someone else's established platform. I think that'd be really interesting. I think it'd be a great way to get you more involved with the toy scene too.
Absolutely. And I think I've done 3 of them now. I've done 3 over a couple of the Kidrobot blanks, but it's really been more of sculpting my own little figurine sort of thing, because those are what sells, and that's what I have to focus on now in order to pay my rent.
Yeah. Now, do you have any fun passion projects on the side? So, you got your what you're doing and what sells in your Etsy store and all that, and that keeps you busy full time. But do you ever have just that's something that's mainly you're trying a new medium, or like you said you want to get into painting? Do you have you started anything on the side?
I haven't started anything kind of in that traditional sense of the word, because most of my time right now on the side has been taken up by making an art car. So I'm taking one of my sculptures that I made for a show at Leanna Lynn's Wonderland, maybe the one that you were talking about, Teresa. I made a sculpture called Wayward Beasties, and it was a mouse riding on the back of a turtle.
Oh, yeah.
And my boyfriend and I are turning that sculpture into a vehicle for Burning Man. And so we are actually making a very large scale version of that sculpture that we are hauling to Burning Man literally 7 hours from now.
Oh, so we're cutting into your project.
No, it's all right. It's all good. They're awesome. Out there. We have a team of probably about 6 people out there putting the finishing touches on it in my front yard as we speak.
Holy smokes.
So, Macy, this is like a functional, drivable car?
This is a functional drivable car, and actually a lot of people build art cars over the chassis of an existing vehicle, but we have chosen to actually make our own car from the ground up. So we're using what's called brushless hub motors, which are the same motors that you see in those, they call them hoverboards, that people are riding around on, or segways.
Yep.
We're using those, so the motors are actually in the wheels, and we made our own chassis that we are building this giant holographic color-changing turtle on top of.
That sounds cool.
It uses a 2V geodesic dome, which is the same dome that you see on a playground that kids can climb on. So that is the basis of the shell.
Holy moly, that's huge!
So you can sleep in it.
Yeah, you can fit about 10 people inside it and 2 people on top of it.
What? That's huge! It's awesome. I didn't realize it was that big. And you were able to support it because of a Kickstarter, right?
Yeah, we made a Kickstarter, and through the blessings of our community and people who just saw and believed in our vision, we've been able to make this a reality, and it's really, really exciting that it's all coming to fruition literally right now.
So, okay, you said holographic. So, I'm picturing shimmering, iridescent type pieces. What are those made out of?
Well, the shell is of course made out of a bunch of triangles that go in that geodesic dome, and the triangles are made out of acrylic. And on top of that acrylic, we put what's called a dichroic film, and it's a film that's actually rated for windows, so it's for the exterior of buildings, so they can be weathered and can withstand the rain and some of the elements. And yeah, it's color changing and shiny and reflective. You walk to one side of it and it looks pink, and you kind of lower your head to the bottom and it changes to green, and then you look above it and it's yellow, and in different lights it looks different. And if there's a light shining behind it, you can see through it, but if there's a light shining on the front of it, it fluoresces like a crystal would. So it is really, really trippy. It's amazing.
That sounds awesome.
Now, are you going to be driving this yourself at Burning Man?
Yeah, me and my boyfriend can both drive it. And it's actually a remote controlled car, so we don't have to actually be inside it at all. So we made a giant RC vehicle.
Sweet.
What? Toy Story come to life.
Yeah, it's a dream come true. I mean, and I've always worked so small that making something into a literal vehicle has just been mind blowing for me.
Now, are you going to be sleeping under the shell while you're there?
No, we have a shift pod, which is a really, really fancy tent. So no, we're not actually going to be sleeping in it, because Burning Man is super dusty, and so we're going to be giving people rides. They're going to be coming in and out of the shell, which would not be the cleanest place to sleep.
That's going up pretty fast. When do you head out?
At 3:00 in the morning, and it's 8 p.m. now.
Holy crap.
Thanks for joining us. I can't believe you squeezed us in between this chaos.
No, it's all right. It's actually a little welcome break. We've been working on the straight for, the last 3 weeks, from the time we get up in the morning to the time we go to bed. So, and, for the last year, a little bit more relaxed than that, but still pretty intensive. So this is actually kind of a nice little break in the midst of all the chaos.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty nuts. I'm giddy.
Well, yeah, shoot, man. Are you going to sleep at all or just stay awake?
I think I'm gonna try to catch a few hours. Sam, my partner, he's gonna drive the first shift, and then I'll probably wake up and drive the second shift, and we're gonna spend the night in Reno, and then spend the night in Fallon, and then go into the gates early Saturday morning.
Wow.
So Burning Man, I kind of know of it, but I don't know a lot of it. So it is literally like a party in the middle of the desert near. Where is it near?
It's 2 hours outside of Reno, so that's probably the closest city that people could really recognize. It's kind of a party.
Hold on, Teresa. What state do you think Reno's in?
Nevada.
Oh,
yay!
well done.
Boom. You thought I wasn't gonna know.
I wasn't sure. You're in the Midwest. I didn't think. Well, not the Midwest. Are you Midwest? No.
Technically,
Yeah.
It's very stupid, because Midwest, to me, when I hear Midwest, literally to me should be like Colorado, because it's out in the west and it's kind of in the middle. I think
Right.
Midwest out east just is stupid. But yes, technically, I guess you could say Midwest, but really I'm literally on the eastern side of the U.S.
Right.
But yeah, so it's in Reno, and so it's explain what Burning Man is. I always picture crazy people like dancing around in the desert.
Well, that's a big part of it for sure. So, a lot of people that go hesitate to call it like a festival or a party. Really, it's an experimental city. So it's actually, I don't remember, it's like the second or third largest city in Nevada when it happens, and it happens for a week, and it's about 70,000 people that come, and it's a lot of artists who bring really, really large scale art. From all over the world. I mean, there's people who bring giant towers from Italy. There's people who bring art cars from all over. There's people who, Android Jones, I don't know if you know Android Jones or Alex Gray or like any sort of that like psychedelic kind of art. They bring giant like virtual reality domes. And it's a big city based on the principle of gifting. So nothing, you can't buy anything at all. There's no vendor village. You can't buy food. You have to bring everything that you need to survive. And you bring experiences for other people. So it's kind of, it's an experiment in humanity more than anything else, in art and humanity.
Interesting. I didn't realize it was more artistic. I just didn't know a lot about it. I figured maybe it was called Burning Man because it's in the desert and it's hot. But beyond that, I didn't realize. It sounds really cool though, like the idea of different people coming together. So like, I mean, it definitely isn't like organized in a way where there's, food trucks and all of that kind of stuff. So you just have to, so like you and your boyfriend are like taking meals for a week with you?
Yeah, over the last 2 days, I made 90 meals for me and him and his mom who's coming with us this year.
Wow. So do you like take like camping-esque type things so that you can like, cook and whatnot while you're there? Or
Yeah. We bring tents, we bring stoves, we bring generators. I mean, we even bring an air conditioner for our shift pod. So we're doing it in luxury. There's some people who bring RVs, but you have to bring every single thing that you need to survive. You have to pack everything out too. It's a leave no trace event, and it's literally leave no trace. You have to pick up every bit of glitter or piece of hair that you drop. The only reason we're able to keep having it there is because we leave no trace. And part of the point of the vehicle that we are making, it's not just this giant shiny turtle that we're making. You can actually feed him what's called moop. And moop stands for matter out of place, which also means trash. And so things that you find as you're walking around on the playa, which is where we hold Burning Man, you can feed him moop. And so he also helps clean up the desert.
Awesome.
Moop.
Moop. Moop eating turtle. Simon the moop eating turtle.
Are you familiar with Sawdust Bear at all?
Yeah.
Okay, I think she's going out there. I think she had also a Kickstarter car that she was designing for Burning Man.
I didn't know about the one for this year, but I know that last year she brought the Lost Apothecary.
That's it. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. So it was last year. Man,
Yeah.
time is going way too fast. Because I know it was something that we mentioned on the podcast, and it doesn't feel like we've been doing the podcast that long, but you're right. It was last year's.
Yeah. I actually didn't make it out there to see it, which I am so bummed because last year was my first year at Burning Man, and I absolutely love Sawdust Bear. She's one of my favorites. And so I was like, if I do anything, I have to make it out to see that. But it was in way deep playa, and it just never happened. I mean, Burning Man is huge, so it's really hard to plan anything. But yeah, that was evidently really, really cool. I heard about it from a lot of different people.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you're gonna have a very fun weekend.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
And I'm gonna stay inside and be nice and cool.
I'll have lots of pictures. You can live vicariously.
Dude, Teresa, it's going to be 110 here this weekend. It's almost September, and it's still 110 here in Arizona.
And see, we've been blessed with this. So this is what Louisville does. We get these random weather spurts, and it has been oddly cool. So it's been getting down to almost 50 at night here.
Oh, that's nice.
So near the end of the day, it's like low 70s, the sun setting, cool breeze. That's why I've been walking my dog. This whole week I'm like, oh my God, it's perfect dog walking weather. Oh my God, I just want to go out there and just be outside. So it's been unseasonably cool around here, which has been fantastic. It feels like fall, which is great.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
I was just in Seattle, and the weather out there was amazing. And then I come back to this furnace, and every time I come back from either San Diego or Seattle, and I come back to this hot air dryer that's Phoenix, Arizona, I don't know why I live here. I really don't. It's hot as hell here.
I don't know how you do it.
Well, our winters are amazing. While you're freezing your ass off, that's my time to go out and play.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
We have different seasons. And during the summer, I just spend all my days at the Wet n Wild Park. We just stay indoors. We just have different seasons, that's all.
When you guys don't go outside during the winter, we just don't go outside during the summer. It's just,
Exactly. I don't want to keep you, Maisie. It sounds like you have a ton of stuff going on there. You got a whole crew. You're neglecting your crew, so maybe we should just. What do you think? Do you want to wrap it up, or do you have more questions, Teresa?
I got one more question.
Yeah.
Sure.
You're building this giant turtle car. You do Burning Man, and then what? Does this become like the car you drive around town?
I wish. It unfortunately will not be street legal, but we actually already have a couple different events lined up for it afterwards. So we will be taking it to other things here in Phoenix and hopefully in Venice Beach, and yeah, kind of all over. How I kind of got into this art car and Burning Man thing is I'm part of what's called the Walter Tribe, who goes to Burning Man every year, and we bring a whole bunch of really giant art cars, and you can do other things with them year round. Like we throw a stage at EDC, we throw a stage at Bonnaroo, we do other festivals besides just Burning Man. So it kind of becomes a year-round sort of lifestyle rather than just something for Burning Man. So we will be seen all over after that.
Awesome.
Okay.
You should totally bring it to DesignerCon so I can sit in it. On it.
I've been thinking about how we could make that happen. So it could be in the works. I don't know if that will happen this year, but perhaps next year we could park it somewhere outside.
It'd be totally awesome. Well, like Kyle Kerwin will bring like his RV around to different events, and he will sit outside. Like he evented outside in his RV outside 5 Points. So you could totally bring your car.
I was even thinking maybe I could buy 2 booth spaces and roll it into the convention center because it's all electric. I mean, there's no gas that you need or anything, and it can actually even be just like towed in there if we don't even let us drive it.
Do you all have those things at the mall where people can, kids can rent like little cars to drive around the mall?
Oh yeah.
You totally let people like rent your turtle car and take people on rides. That would be awesome.
That would be super cool. We've been driving it around the neighborhood, and our neighbors are coming out and asking for rides, so that's been pretty fun.
Nice. Well, I think while you're away at Burning Man, I think all of our listeners should go to your web store and buy a little something. That way, when you get back, you're just going to be super slammed and shipping for days.
I'm ready. I'm bringing it on.
Yeah, definitely.
I totally see. I've got some extra Hey KVs. I don't know if you've heard of Hey KV. It's like a cute little pudgy basic sculpt. But I totally kind of want to commission you to polymer clay that baby up. I think that could be fun.
Oh my God, I would love that.
Gary, I want one from you too, but I don't know if you do it.
You heard from Kat what I'm like on those customs, so you may never get it.
I'm going to send you one, and on it, I'm going to put a Post-it note with a due date.
I'll put it right next to Kat's.
Sit there and collect dust, and 2 years later, I'll be poking you for it. I'm not giving you one of my precious KVs.
Yeah, maybe a week, the week off, or maybe Christmas break, I can find some time for something like that. But yeah,
you can find time for me, Gary. You can find time for me.
Okay. Well, Macy, thanks so much for taking the time in this very chaotic night you got going on, and I hope you have a lot of fun at Burning Man. And I wish you all the best of luck with your.
And
Kapopcalypse. Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely looking forward to Kapopcalypse, and hopefully we'll be at DCon and we can turn the quarters in the machine and get some of your capsule toys, and definitely looking forward to those. So why don't you take a brief moment and just let all of our listeners know where they can find you?
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Simon Says Macy, and my email is simonsaysmacy.com, and I'm friendly and I don't bite, so drop me a message.
Well, that was short and sweet.
Easy. Simon is Macy. Go find her, and it's awesome and cute, and you'll want it all.
Aw, shucks. Well, thanks for having me on. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for joining. Teresa.
All right, so me, Teresa Hawkins. If you want to find me, just check me out on Instagram, tmhawk24.
Right, and I am Gary Ham. You can find me at Gary Ham on Instagram or superham.com. This has been the Marsham Toy Hour. We do this every week, not because we have to,
but because we want to.
So until our next transmission, we're signing off. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.